Hello there, YouTubers, and hopefully a few of you people are weaving enthusiasts who subscribe to my channel. Anyways, today what I'm going to do, or it's going to take more than just today, it's going to be probably a week or so to finish this whole thing. But today I'm starting a new project which hopefully will turn into a shawl that it'll be a double weave shawl. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold up in just a second a miniature sample of what I hope to make in a full size. So here is my miniature sample. As you can see, on one side it's mostly pink with a little bit of blue in it. On the other side it's mostly blue with a little bit of pink on it. But that's not really what it is, that's just what it looks like now. Because you can see up here that it doesn't have a straight edge. It seems to have a right angle, or a 45-degree angle edge. And what it really has is that it's more like two pieces of cloth joined together where that right angle is, or where the 45-degree angle is. So that's the goal, is to make something like this in full size. This, by the way, is a perfect size to fit an American Girl doll. I gave it to my wife to put it on one of her dolls in her collection. But I'm going to start out with the goal of making something that will have a structure similar to this. So let's take a look at the yarns that I'm going to use. Let me mention to you first, I'm using up some of my leftovers where I've got small odds and ends of colors. So there's not going to be a real, it'll always work this way type thing to this. This is a one-off to use up some leftovers. But I think it'll make some interesting color combinations and be a great way to use odds and ends. So the yarn that I'm using is all from Harrisville Designs. I believe they're in New Hampshire, and it's all their Shetland weight yarn. Let's take a look at the colors that I'm going to use now. Alright, so I've just got the colors sitting on their cones, and they're sitting on the sideboard where we keep some of our dishes. But anyways, so the first color that you're looking at here, that's this one right here, is called Garnet. Then the second one here is called Russet. The next color, they call it Lady Slipper. I think of it as pink. This one is Gold. This one, well, let's move over because the next two are kind of interesting. Whoops. This one is called Corn Silk, but I think of it as yellow. And this one is called Corn Flower, but I think of it as light blue. And then we'll move over and catch the last couple. Plum, which is pretty much a purple, and Violet. So we're sort of following the what do I want to call it, the colors, the rainbow colors, which way back in high school 50 years ago I learned as using the acronym Roy G. Biv. It was a name: red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Anyways, these are the colors that I'm going to be using. Right, you've seen me before putting warp on and measuring on my warping board, but we'll give you a little bit of explanation what I'm doing here. My intent when I actually weave this is to go 12 threads per inch of warp, but it's double slayed because I'm doing double knit, so, or double weave I mean, so it's actually 24, but it'll be 12 per layer. So I've got 12 threads of my first color on there. I'm going to just make a little slip knot in the end of my second color. Slide it on there, and I'm only going to put a few threads of this on. Maybe 4. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's that color. I'll just wrap it like this to tie it off for the moment. Okay, then let's pick our next color. And I'm measuring out a 2-yard warp. Because for this particular shawl I have learned from experience that anything more than that is just wasting yarn. I'll probably still have a little loom waste on here. So now let's go for our next color. And again, I'm purposely intermixing the colors. I want these to have some bright contrasts. There's 2 of those. Now I've got 6 threads on there. That's a 1/2 inch. I'm going to just put a tie in it to keep track of where I am in terms of my number of groups of 1/2 inch threads. But you can see the idea, what I'm doing for measuring, and I'll show you again after I get it all measured and hanging on the back of Loom, but I wanted to let you see this part. It's now been basically 1 day since you saw me measuring out the warp for this double weave shawl, and I know you won't be able to read this, but I'm just going to show you. I've got a note paper where I've been keeping track of exactly how many threads I put up of each color into this. And of course I'm counting it as if it were one side, but it's double, so there's always 2 for everything I count here. So let's take a look at the warp as it's just now been tied onto the back beam and sitting in the rattle, ready to be wound up onto the back beam. So let me turn this around, and there you are. That's my warp. As you can hopefully see, I've got it tied onto the back beam. I like to take a cord like this and wrap it around the tie-on bar and the little metal bar that you actually tie it onto. And then of course I've got the lee sticks in there, and the cross goes in between the lee sticks. Then we go from there up through the rattle. It's spread out a little bit wider in the rattle than I'm going to actually be weaving, but that way I get a nice even number of threads in the rattle. I've got it set up so in each dent of the rattle I've got 4 threads, and then I skipped 1 dent after in between each inch of working. So I've taken about 20 or 22 inches of rattle width to do what I need for 16 inches of weaving width. That's where that is. Let's zoom you in just a little bit so you can get a closer idea of the colors as it sits in the rattle. There we are. I think it's going to be a fairly nice looking shawl when it gets done. The predominant color is the Harrisville Designs Shetland color of garnet, and then I spread the rest of the colors out semi-randomly. Just I think it'll make some interesting looking striping when we get all done. And I'm going to use garnet for the weft. So that's it for today's. Well, the warp has all been wound on. Now I'm standing here at the front of the loom, at the top. We'll turn that light off. I think it's probably more trouble than it's worth. And what I'm taking, I've got batches of warp threads that are about 1 inch, and they're each 1 inch worth of thread. So what I'm going to do is just, because they're looped here and I need them individual, rather than go through each of these loops like this and try and cut the end of it, that's too putsy. I'm going to take and just comb them out a little bit like this, reach down here, and about this point just slice them all off, set the little ends apart, I had them tied with these tie threads from the warping board just to keep them all together and straight as I came over here from the warping board and put them on. Now you can see they're got a group of threads here, an inch's worth. And again, we'll just trim off that little bit. And then we've got a nice even edge. I'll do one more on camera so you can see what I'm doing. And then I'm going to turn the camera off and do the rest of these offline. And I'll come back and show you the next step. But I wanted you to see how I'm going to clear this mess up. There we are. That's that process. Well, hopefully you can see that I've got everything cut off and the ends are pretty even right along there, where I've taken my scissors and given this warp kind of a haircut. Now here's the next fun little piece. We need to get the warp from up here on top of the loom, which is hanging down behind the loom. So I'm just going to start grabbing chunks and pulling it out and dropping it down below. You've seen the top part. Let's take a look a little bit lower. You'll be able to see it there, I think. Now I'll be able to grab these threads when I start, one at a time when I start threading through the heddles. I just need to get them down below. So pull them out from the rattle. There's my built-in rattle. Drop them all down below. Notice they're still through the cross down here in my lee sticks. So that's that's a very important thing actually, to have them continue to be in the cross on the lee sticks, because that means I can always tell which one is the very next one and I can grab it appropriately. But what I want to do is move the camera a little bit and just show you one other thing that's kind of unique to this loom. So since the last time I wove, and maybe you'll be able to see this, if you look here at these little ties and here at these little black marks, when I push on one of the treadles, these move. That's because there's these pulleys at the end right here that the cords come up from down below, go over these pulleys and over to the other side, so that they can pull on both sides of the shaft equally. But now while I'm setting up for the next batch, I don't want the shafts to be able to move. So we've got this pin that goes all the way through, and I'm pulling it back to the point where it is, and you can see here on my Texolve there's a little black mark that is set to always be in the same place on each one of them, and I thread each one of these through onto this pin, and what that does is it forces all my shafts to be at the exact same level. So now I know I'm working at the same level with my shafts, and this kind of locks the shafts into place. And that's kind of a neat thing that this loom does, but I don't know, maybe other looms have a similar feature, but I don't know that they do. So I just thought I'd mention that to you. It's a feature that's on this sley that I've really gotten very used to having, and it's a nice thing to have for having the shafts all be at exactly the same height whilst I'm threading the individual threads through the heddles. Okay, that's it for now. I'm going to begin to do that threading. I got to go look at my notes for what my pattern's going to be, to how I'm going to do that, and I will update you with more as I get closer to getting that part done. I'm sitting in front of the loom now, and I'm ready to, and I've already begun to thread the warp threads here through these heddles, and I'm just going to show you that process for one or two sets. So let's start over here with a couple of warp threads. I reach to the back and grab them. I find which one is the next available thread, grab a heddle, thread through the eye of the heddle, and set that one aside. Grab the next individual thread through the eye of the heddle, set that one aside. Now the way I'm doing this, it's what some people would call a straight draw. I'm basically, each 4 threads are going through heddles that are on shafts 4, 3, 2, 1, and then I start over again at 4, 3, 2, 1. And I will put a little diagram of my pattern into the video so you can see that. But here you go. I've got 4 threads through 4 heddles. Set those aside. Move the next batch over. That'll be this 4 threads of gold that are here. So we'll grab the first one again. This will go on shaft 4. See that? Now we'll go to shaft 3. This is a very slow, putsy, tedious process. I know that. It's one of the reasons why, you know, commercial weavers don't like to do this very often. And it's one of the reasons why hand weaving can be very expensive, because of the time that goes into this. Okay, so here I've got a set of 8 threads together. I'm going to just give them a nice combing to get them even. I'm going to tie a quick knot so as they don't come back out. Set that aside. There we go. As I said, this process is slow and putsy, but it's a necessary evil. It's a necessary part of the weaving, and it's something that only hand weavers who are not concerned about their time can take the time to do this, to set up patterns like this, to do small projects, because I'm less concerned about the time than what I'm making. So that's this particular step of the process, and I will finish this process and come back to you with the next step. Well, we're coming very close to the end of threading the heddles. I've got 8 more threads to go, so let's move 4 heddles over. Grab the next 2 threads from the back. Thread through the first one. And move that out of the way. Keep this straight too. Grab the next thread, and again we go through this heddle, move those out of the way. next thread through there, next thread through there. And again, I'm threading kind of a straight draw, which is 4, 3, 2, 1 on the shafts. I wonder if I can find, this just might be enough. I'll hold up my camera. And let's see if we can, just to get a contrast there. Can you see that? Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit on just that. Can you see that we've got the threads here and an opening right in the middle there to make kind of an eye? That's what I'm working with. So when I go through that, I take the next thread and I go right through that eye. And now the thread can't go any farther down than that, can't go any farther up than that. So that's what makes when I move a shaft, that's what makes the thread move up and down. Oops. We'll back you out a little bit again. There. Last thread, last warp thread through the heddles. We'll take and pick these up and comb them out straight. I would just put a little knot in them so that it can't slip back. Okay, now I've got to just pull things straight again and move things over, but you can kind of see all the threads are through the heddles. I had the heddles pushed back out of the way, so now I'm just going to grab them and pull them back to where they ought to be, like this. So that I've got a straight pull, like that. The next thing will be to put the reed back in place on the beater bar and thread through there, and I'll give you a short look at that in a little bit. Okay, as you can see, I've got most of the warp slayed through the reed. I've got one more batch of 8 dents worth to go to finish off this little bit, and I'm doing that now. You can see how the slaying, S-L-E-Y-I-N-G, of the warp goes. I'm just grabbing 2 threads at a time because I'm slaying 2 threads per dent in a 12 dent reed, and my intention is that for each layer of the double weave material that I will have 12 threads per inch of warp, but since I have 2 layers, that means I have to slay it at 2 threads in 12 or 24 ends per inch. I know this is turning into a simple math course, and I really hate to do that to anybody, but it is kind of important to understand that if you want to calculate out about how much yarn you're going to need and what your cloth is going to look like. So there, that's the last of the threads through the reed. And we'll just tie a quick little knot in the end of it, because from here on we don't need to have it untied for any reason again. And I've lined them up so all these have little knots at about the same place, so we've got a nice even warp there. And I've taken off the C-clamp that was holding things in there. You can see the entire bit of warp that's through the reed. So the next step is to put the breast beam on. That'll go right about, I think you can probably see where my finger's pointing, this metal piece over here on top of this vertical wooden beam. And I'll put the breast beam on, and then we'll tie onto the take-up beam. That's next. More coming. I think this video has gone on long enough, so I've decided to split the video for the weaving of the double weave shawl into two parts, and thus endeth here the first part, which is the setup on the loom for the shawl, and I will have the second video uploaded in a day or so, which will be the actual weaving of the shawl and giving you a good look at it when it's done. I've got a model lined up to show it to you, and I think you'll like that. So that'll be the next video. This is just way too long. We're already over 20 minutes, so stay tuned for double weave shawl part 2, the actual weaving.